Hello everybody, I'm Rusty. I want to welcome you to Island Breeze Tropicals. So today we're going to have some fun. We're going to look at 5 myths, 5 things that aren't necessarily true about our bromeliads that I read on the internet. So you know what? The sun is shining, the island breeze is blowing. It's time that you and I got growing. Come on, let's have some fun and let's look at 5 things that are wrong about our bromeliads that I just found on the internet. So before we get going, if this is your first time here, welcome. If you like what you see, please do me a favor, hit that like button down there. And if you really like what you see, I hope you'll come back, become a subscriber, and be part of our Bromeliad family. So let's have some fun and get to today's video. So today we're going to be looking at 5 myths that I found about bromeliads on the internet. Now look, I'm not downing the internet, but you know, there's a lot of information on there and we all have to have a filter. So that means we've got to do our research and not look at just one source, especially when we want to grow our bromeliads. But we're going to have fun today and I found 5 that we're going to look at. All right, why don't we start out with myth number 1. And that is that leaf structure, whether it's really stiff or has spines or is soft, will determine whether or not your bromeliad is sun hardy. Okay, so one of the myths that I've seen on the internet is that they have one size fits all for sun hardiness when it comes to leaf structure. And one of those internet rules is that your bromeliad is going to be very hardy in sun if it has spines. Well, by default, this is Neoregelia Ardie, by the way. By default, well, you can see that this doesn't have many spines at all. It does have them, but it's not what I would call prominent. And Ardie is very hardy in sun. Now you can see that in sun they do get some nice color to them. But here's another thing that you will read on the internet where it also says that the stiffer the leaf, the more it can handle sun. Well, you can see that is not a very stiff leaf at all. Now here's yet another example, not real stiff leaf. This is called Neoregelia Bossa Nova, and Bossa Nova is very hardy in unfiltered sunlight. Now that's down here in southwest Florida. Imagine how hardy it would be if you do not have sun as intense as we do here. And I'm going to come down to this leaf, and you can see that this is just not a stiff leaf. Now, yes, there are sun-tolerant bromeliads that do have stiff leaves, and there are sun-tolerant bromeliads that have a lot of spines, but there just really isn't any hard and fast rule. Myth number 2. The color of the leaf, light or dark, determines a bromeliad's sun hardiness. So here's another example of one of those hard and fast rules that I've just read on the internet. I did the research just a couple of days ago, and one talks about color. And actually, I've seen it go both ways, and color, according to some sources on the internet, determines its sun hardiness. Unfortunately, it depends on what you read, and one says that when they've got deep dark color, they are really hardy in sun, and the other one says, well, not. This is Neoregelia Royal Burgundy, by the way, thanks to some of our viewers who pointed out that I have not listed the names. From now on, you're going to see the names of the bromeliads that I put in the videos, and they'll be in the description or down in the comments. So again, this is Neo Royal Burgundy, and this is fairly hardy in sun. Now you can see it's got a deep dark maroon color. By the way, I'm sorry for the glare here. This is Southwest Florida, and as you can see, the sun is shining brightly. Okay, so here is another bromeliad, not quite as dark as Royal Burgundy. This is an unnamed hybrid. It's an Ecmia. I want to bring it down here, and you can see that there is some degree of sun damage on it. So we've just looked at two bromeliads that have dark colors, and one can handle sun and this one really cannot. And then we take a look at Neoregelia Ardie again, and take a look, guys. This is about as light as you could get, and it is very hardy in sun. So leaf color is not a one-size-fits-all determination for a bromeliad being able to tolerate unfiltered sunlight. Myth number 3. All bromeliads bloom from the center of the tank and are monocarpic. So another rule that I read on the internet just recently said that bromeliads all bloom from the center of the plant and they will die. They are monocarpic. So this is a Guzmania, and it's called Patricia. And as you can see, yes indeed, they are producing an inflorescence that rises from the center of the plant, and if that's the case, yes indeed, it is monocarpic. And I think it's really, really pretty. By the way, Guzmanias make great house plants. We just did a video on bromeliads as house plants. You might want to take a look at that. So here is another exception. This is called a Dyckia, and I think this is just a hybrid. And take a look at the inflorescence, and it's kind of hard to see because there are such a mass of plants. But hold on, I think I'm going to try and show you where that inflorescence comes from. So here's the inflorescence. I'm going to follow it down, and it's kind of hard to see, but that's coming from the side of the plant. And there's the base of it. And as you can see, the center of the rosette is actually off to the left. And you can see, I'm going to go on up and we'll follow it on down again. And you can see that that's coming out from the side of the plant. Now, when that's the case, that particular rosette is not going to decline and die because the flower came out of the side. So not all bromeliads will bloom from the center of the rosette. Myth number 4. All bromeliads are epiphytes. Okay, just briefly, why don't we figure out what an epiphyte is? And an epiphyte can mean a couple of different things, both of them pretty much the same with distinction. Now you're going to read an awful lot that says an epiphyte is something that grows in trees. But for today's video, we're going to be using the term epiphyte and epiphytic simply to mean that the plant does not grow in soil. Okay, so another rule is that all bromeliads are epiphytic. Now this is a clump of hot embers. It's a neoregelia. And yeah, it is epiphytic. Now this is another nice example of a bromeliad that's an epiphyte, and many are. And this is called tiger cub. But this Dyckia most definitely is not an epiphyte. This is a purely terrestrial bromeliad. Now here's another example of a purely terrestrial bromeliad, and this is Puya mirabilis. And this grows in very arid regions, but it is purely terrestrial. Now these are another example of terrestrial bromeliads. These are all in the genus Cryptathus. I'm not going to list these guys. These are all hybrids. And as you can see, they have a very flattened rosette, and they are terrestrial, not epiphytic. And finally, myth number 5. We only have to water the tanks of our bromeliads and not in the pot. Now this is another internet myth, that you only have to water your bromeliad in the central tank. This, by the way, is neoregelia Valentines. So if you want your bromeliad to grow really, really well, don't just water the central tank, guys. What you want to do is, and I'll show you in just a second. Let me pull back, because this is a really, really pretty neoregelia. But you want to make sure that you also water the substrate in the pot, because the root system of your bromeliad, even if it's a tank type, becomes more fibrous and will absorb water if you have it growing in a pot and it has the right kind of potting soil. By the way, we do have a video on the right kind of potting mix to use, so go ahead and look at our library, and you should look at that. Okay, so the other thing, though, when it says you only water in the cup, well, you would have to have a cup in which to water. And we just looked at some terrestrial bromeliads, and this is Cryptathus. And I'm going to get down in here and see if I can show you that there's not much of a cup at all. So not only with the tank type, but especially with the bromeliads that do not have a cup, they do need to be watered in the substrate of the pot. So, okay guys, I had a little bit of fun. I hope you did too. So what did we learn from this? Well, not that we shouldn't get our information from probably the most rich source that we have, and that's the internet, but that we need to read an awful lot of sources and try to flesh out what's true and what isn't, and not to take just one source as verbatim truth. So, no matter where you are, I hope your sun is shining. I hope you have an island breeze blowing. I know that you and I need to keep growing and have lots of fun. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.